Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. There is a famous debate among historians over whether the events in history are shaped and determined by a handful of powerful and influential people, or by the constant ebb and flow of everyday life with its natural and inevitable trends and movements. This debate will probably never be resolved, as both sides have what to say in their defense. The great people idea has only to look at the watershed events of the past that have obviously been so crucial in carving the paths of history in the ways that they came to be. It is those people who made the oversized decisions that determined so much of our fate. The other side says that all this is nothing more than a product of historians who only know how to examine the big things, and so that is what they see. The reality, however, is that those great people are no greater than anybody else, and history is the sum product of the human race. We are all in this together. There is probably truth to both approaches, and history is likely a combination of a few great individuals and the cumulative effect of everybody else. For obvious reasons, the history books tend to focus on those few. They are easier to keep track of and easier to trace their influence. People in any given culture have their historical figures who were the movers and shakers that made that culture into whatever it is. These may have been military leaders or politicians or philosophers or pioneers. Some were deemed tremendously good, while others gained their fame and their influence by their outsized evil. They may have been nothing more than people who were in the right place at the right time. But they were the ones who made their names known, and it is them who had the greatest role in shaping history. The Jews are no exception to this cultural tendency. We have our great figures from the biblical or rabbinic past, whose names and deeds are known and enshrined in the books. They are the kings David and Solomon, the prophets Moshe, Samuel, and Isaiah. They are the rabbinic leaders like Hillel and Rabbi Akiva. There are unique spiritual figures like Elijah or the Baal Shem Tov, philosophers like Maimonides, political leaders like Ben Gurion, and scientists like Einstein. While the Jews tend to lack the classic generals and war leaders, at least since late biblical times, they more than make up for it with their intellectual and ethical trailblazers. But there happens to be at least one individual who transcends the normal barriers of culture and has managed to lodge himself as a truly universal figure in the history of the world. There may be more than one such person, but this one came in early enough that his influence has spread through the world like a dominant gene in some ancient DNA. His influence is vast in Judaism, but it is equally powerful in Christianity and Islam. In more subtle ways, it has penetrated to those parts of the world that have nothing to do with monotheism and the ancient Middle Eastern culture. His name is Avraham, and he is on the very short list of the most influential people in human history. In fact, the only factor working against him in that elusive role is the lack of what is considered to be concrete evidence that he ever lived. This week's Parsha is called Chayei Sara. That phrase means the life of Sarah, an ironic introduction to the announcement of her death. She lived to the grand old age of 127, and this week's Parsha memorializes her passing and Abraham's efforts to find a burial place for her. This place, of course, is the famous Cave of Machpelah, located forever in the ancient city of Hebron. To this day, it is one of the great religious shrines of monotheism, as it is the burial place of Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Leah. It would not be easy to find a place more firmly lodged in history and legend, and one more firmly embedded in religious conflict. From there, the Parsha goes into a very long story of how Abraham sent his servant, Eliezer, to the east to find a suitable wife for Isaac. This episode takes up the bulk of the Parsha. It ends with success, as Eliezer brings back Rebekah to be Isaac's wife. There are only a handful of verses left for the end of the Parsha, which deals with the last years of Abraham's life and his death at the age of 175. His state at his death is described in the Torah as, quote, a good old age and satisfied. It does seem a bit underwhelming as a closing description of such a pivotal figure in history. But then again, how many of us could really be spoken of in a work such as the Bible as satisfied? There is something in the introductory phrase of the story of Eliezer and Rebekah that alludes to Abraham's eventual demise and the urgency of finding a wife for his son. The Torah states, quote, Abraham was old, advanced in years, and God blessed Abraham with everything. While the obvious thing to focus on in this verse would be this blessing of everything that God bestowed upon him, we are going to focus on something that hardly gets noticed at all. It is that phrase, advanced in years. While this is certainly an appropriate description of someone who is truly old, and Abraham was 137 at the time, it could contain something more than it seems to. The exact Hebrew wording does not translate as advanced in years, but came in days. This is clearly a biblical idiom that effectively means advanced in years when translated into English. However, it may mean something else besides that. One of the great Hasidic rebbes of the period immediately preceding the Holocaust, Rabbi Kalonymus Kalman Shapira, gave a fascinating interpretation of this phrase. While granting the straightforward meaning of advanced in years, he asserted that the nuanced wording of the phrase said something in addition to this. This addition was that Abraham was described quite literally as coming in his days. This meant that each day for him was a new adventure in life. Each day was a journey with somewhere to start and somewhere to get to. He went somewhere each day of his life. Among the various incidents of Abraham's life that are recorded in the Torah, this would probably rank somewhere towards the bottom. He really played a very minor role in the story, just instructing his servant as to what he should do and then letting him do it. This particular line in the story is really incidental to the story itself. Most people hardly even notice that it is there. But there it is, and there is this fascinating interpretation. In this small phrase is contained an idea that really clues us in on what Abraham was all about. He was a person who wanted to do something in life. He didn't want the Abraham of tomorrow to be the Abraham of today. He wanted his days to be a journey. The role of Abraham in human history cannot possibly be overstated. Assuming we have no problem with the fact that such a person did indeed live and that his story is somewhat faithfully recorded in the Bible, we have to ask why his influence was so tremendous. What was it about him that exerted this ethical and spiritual pull that has lasted for about 4,000 years? There is no other figure in human history that approaches this level of endurance. What did he do to earn this lofty status? First, he did leave his homeland for an unknown place. But countless people have done that through the ages, and they have been forgotten. He did journey through the Holy Land, building altars here and there, and occasionally communicating with God. That is truly something, but it is not entirely unique for the Bible. He did have dealings with his neighbors and even with rulers of neighboring lands, but this is really nothing so out of the ordinary that it puts him at the top of the pedestal of human history. He did go through circumcision and was the first to take this wild chance. That is certainly unique, but again, it hardly seems to be something that should be world-altering. He did buy a cave to bury his wife, but this was only to be expected. He did have various adventures with childlessness and changing his name and marrying a second wife and all the trauma associated with all that. But this is really not that big of a deal. Of course, he did go all the way with the prophetic commandment to sacrifice his son as an offering to God and would have actually done the deed had an angel not stopped him at the last second. As unique as this is by biblical standards and as challenging as this must have been for him, it is still a bit puzzling why this is considered such an influential act. Judaism, or any other monotheistic religion, hardly wants to be recognized as promoting child sacrifice or any sort of human sacrifice. Whatever he really accomplished there is not really emulated in any direct way other than being willing to do whatever God asks. Is this why he's considered so pivotal in history and possibly the most influential person ever? Perhaps he just got lucky and was recorded in this highly influential book as this founding figure. Perhaps that's really all there is to it. Perhaps those religions made a good deal more out of him than was actually found in the text, and his influence grew with the growth of monotheism. While a typical historian of religion would likely be satisfied with this explanation, a devout believer likely would not. Abraham didn't just get lucky. He wasn't merely in the right place at the right time, recorded in the right places in the right book. He was more than that. Perhaps Abraham is the father of all those who want life to be a continuous and ongoing journey. These people are not satisfied with coasting through life, whether it is leaving their homeland because they recognize that they will stagnate there and venturing into the unknown, or battling the forces of ignorance and evil to constantly search for the ever-present voice of God in the world, or being willing to go to the utmost means to dedicate oneself to the highest cause. He was always looking for the next step in the journey. Even when he was old and his great deeds were behind him, he was still journeying in his days. Perhaps this is why, at the very end, the Torah can accurately describe him as satisfied. He had done it. When we look to great and influential personalities of the past to influence and guide us in the course of our lives, we want to find someone to whom we can relate, someone who speaks to us as we are. There are plenty to choose from, and everyone has their preference. When all else fails, perhaps it wouldn't be such a bad idea to look to the life of the grandfather of them all, the first one recorded anywhere who still remains relevant. For Abraham, life was a journey that never ends. We would do well to emulate his example. Shabbat Shalom.